My first week at Delta Sigma Phi had been a whirlwind of excitement and nervous anticipation. Moving into the fraternity house on the edge of campus in Ann Arbor, Michigan, felt like stepping into a new world. The grand brick building, with its ivy-covered walls and old-world charm, was a far cry from the sterile dorms I'd known. The brothers were welcoming, and the parties were a blast. But beneath the surface, there was a tension I couldn't quite place. Little did I know that feeling was the first sign of something deeply unsettling that would unfold over the next few weeks. One night, after a particularly raucous party, the brothers announced an initiation ritual for the new pledges. It was supposedly a long-standing tradition, but the details were vague and shrouded in secrecy. We were told to meet in the basement at midnight, dressed in dark clothes, and to bring nothing but our courage. As I descended the creaky stairs into the dimly lit basement, a sense of unease settled over me. The air was thick with the smell of old wood and something else, something metallic and unsettling. The basement was eerily quiet, save for the sound of our footsteps echoing off the walls. The brothers had set up a series of elaborate obstacles and challenges designed to test our resolve. As I navigated through them, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone or something was watching us. Every shadow seemed to move with a life of its own, and every creak of the old house felt like a warning. When one of the older brothers whispered something about secrets that must remain hidden, my heart skipped a beat. In the dead of night, as we were undergoing a particularly grueling challenge, a loud crash echoed through the basement. We all froze, our breaths visible in the cold, damp air. A few of the brothers went to investigate, but they returned minutes later, pale and visibly shaken. They tried to brush it off as a minor incident, but I could see the fear in their eyes. The strange noise had come from the room we were specifically told to avoid, deepening the growing sense of dread among us. The next day I started receiving cryptic messages on my phone, texts from an unknown number, hinting at the secrets hidden within the house. The messages were vague but disturbing, with phrases like, "You're getting close," and "The truth lies beneath." My friends dismissed it as a prank, but the unease I felt was palpable. The sense that there was something terribly wrong, something dangerous, was growing stronger. I couldn't shake the feeling that the messages were a warning. Determined to get to the bottom of the strange occurrences, I decided to check the security footage from the night of the incident. The fraternity had cameras set up around the house, and while I was initially denied access, a quick plea to the tech-savvy brother Mike got me in. As I reviewed the footage, I saw something that made my blood run cold. A shadowy figure moving through the basement, right where the noise had occurred. The figure was unsettlingly still, watching from the corner of the screen, before disappearing into the darkness. Fueled by the unsettling footage, I decided to explore the basement further. I found a hidden door behind some old boxes, a door that looked like it hadn't been opened in years. My heart raced as I pried it open, revealing a small, dusty room filled with old fraternity memorabilia and unsettling items. Photographs of former members, some of whom had mysteriously disappeared. Among them was a photograph of a man I recognized from the footage. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. This was no ordinary prank or initiation. As days passed, the cryptic messages continued, growing more menacing. I began to notice someone watching me, an unfamiliar face lurking around the campus, always just out of sight. I confronted one of the brothers, who assured me it was just a coincidence, but the tension in his voice told me otherwise. I felt like I was being followed, and the once friendly fraternity house now seemed like a labyrinth of secrets and hidden dangers. The paranoia was consuming me. Every creak of the house, every whisper among the brothers seemed to take on a sinister edge. My sleep was plagued with nightmares, and I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The fraternity, which had once been a haven of camaraderie, now felt like a trap, and my friends seemed distant and evasive. My fear reached its peak when I discovered that my room had been searched, personal items moved and photographs tampered with. One night, unable to bear the fear any longer, I decided to confront the figure from the footage. I followed him to a secluded part of the campus where he finally revealed himself. To my horror, he was one of the fraternity's alumni, someone who had been rumored to have disappeared under mysterious circumstances. He claimed to be protecting the house from intruders who sought to uncover its dark secrets. The encounter was chilling, and his eerie calmness made it clear that he was dangerous. The confrontation with the alumnus led me to uncover more horrifying truths. The fraternity had a long history of sinister practices, and many of its former members had vanished under mysterious circumstances. The hidden room I discovered was part of a larger network of secrets, rituals, and dark traditions that had been passed down through the years. The fraternity house, it seemed, was a place where danger lurked behind every corner, and the current members were as trapped in its legacy as I was. Even after everything I discovered, the threat didn't dissipate. The fraternity's grip on me tightened, and the strange messages continued, warning me that I had meddled in things I didn't understand. I eventually decided to leave the fraternity, but the sense of unease never fully went away. I still receive occasional cryptic messages and sometimes catch glimpses of those shadowy figures in the distance. The Delta Sigma house stands as a dark reminder that some secrets are better left buried, and that the true horror is often hidden in plain sight. I never expected that my college life would spiral into something so unsettling, but it all began on a crisp October evening. As a freshman at the University of Michigan, I was eager to immerse myself in campus life and make new friends. So when I received an invitation to a party from one of the fraternities, Theta Sigma Pi, I was thrilled. They were known for their wild gatherings, and the thought of socializing with upperclassmen seemed like the perfect way to break the ice. Little did I know, this seemingly harmless invitation would pull me into a terrifying ordeal I would never forget. Arriving at the fraternity house on Washtenaw Avenue, I was greeted with raucous laughter and the smell of pizza. The atmosphere was electric, with a Halloween-themed party in full swing. The brothers welcomed me warmly, and I was soon mingling with other freshmen eager to fit in. As the night wore on, the music grew louder and the games became more intense. Then, out of the blue, the fraternity president, Jake, announced an initiation ritual. It was supposed to be a fun, albeit slightly embarrassing, tradition for new members. I was curious but excited, not realizing the night was far from ordinary. The initiation involved a scavenger hunt around the campus, which sounded harmless enough. As we scattered, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. A sense of unease settled in when I noticed a few of the fraternity brothers watching us from the shadows. Every so often, I'd hear whispers and faint giggles behind me. Each time I turned around, there was nothing, just the usual campus quiet. I dismissed it as my nerves getting the best of me, but the whispers persisted, growing more insistent as the night went on. During the scavenger hunt, I was tasked with retrieving a priceless item from the old library. As I searched through the dusty shelves, I stumbled upon a hidden room behind a sliding bookcase. Inside, there were unsettling photographs of previous initiates in various compromising situations. Each photo was labeled with a date and a disturbing note about the person's future. My heart raced as I realized these were not just pranks, they seemed to be documenting something far more sinister. Returning to the main party, I felt a growing sense of dread. The atmosphere had shifted. The fraternity brothers' smiles seemed forced, and their eyes flickered with a strange intensity. Conversations felt rehearsed, and the usual joviality had given way to a more subdued, eerie mood. I tried to shake off my unease, attributing it to the shock of my earlier discovery. Yet every time I glanced around, I felt as though I was being scrutinized more closely than before. Later that evening, Jake invited a group of us, including myself, to a private room in the basement. He spoke in hushed tones about a special tradition for those who truly wished to join the fraternity. As we entered, the room was dimly lit, with candles casting flickering shadows on the walls. The fraternity brothers began to chant in unison, and a sense of foreboding washed over me. I felt a chill as I realized this was no ordinary initiation ritual. Something deeply unsettling was unfolding before my eyes. As the chanting continued, I tried to slip away, feeling a growing panic. Just as I reached the door, I was stopped by one of the older brothers, who grinned with a menacing glint in his eyes. He informed me that leaving was not an option. It was part of the ritual. Desperation set in as I realized I was trapped. Every attempt to exit was thwarted by the increasingly hostile crowd, and my sense of dread grew with each passing minute. I finally managed to break free and sought refuge in an empty classroom. My mind raced as I tried to make sense of everything. Suddenly, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. It contained a photo of me from earlier that night, along with a chilling message. "You're in deeper than you think." My heart pounded as I understood that they had been tracking my every move. The realization that I was being watched and manipulated was almost too much to bear. Determined to escape, I confronted Jake directly. He was calm and eerily composed as he explained that the fraternity's rituals were not just about fun, but about control and submission. His cold demeanor and the way he spoke with detached confidence were deeply unsettling. He revealed that they had been monitoring us, the initiates, for vulnerabilities to exploit. The whole experience was orchestrated to test our resolve and loyalty, a disturbing revelation that made my skin crawl. Jake's explanation made it clear that the fraternity was involved in something far darker than mere college pranks. They had ties to underground groups that used these rituals to recruit and manipulate vulnerable individuals. The fraternity house, which seemed so ordinary from the outside, was a facade for something much more sinister. My realization that I was entangled in this network of control and manipulation was horrifying. Just as I was about to leave, I discovered that one of my closest friends, Sarah, was deeply involved in the fraternity. She had been acting strange for weeks, and it all suddenly made sense. She had been coerced into participating in the fraternity's activities and was now part of their network. The betrayal cut deep, knowing that someone I trusted was entwined in this nightmare. Sarah's involvement added a layer of personal horror to an already terrifying situation. With the help of a sympathetic fraternity brother who had grown disillusioned with the group, I managed to escape the house. As I fled, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, the sense of paranoia lingering long after I had left. The fraternity's grip was not so easily shaken, and the fear that they might come after me kept me on edge. Even now, months later, I still feel the shadows of that night lurking in my mind, a chilling reminder of the horrors that lurk beneath seemingly normal facades. I was eager to start my freshman year at the University of Michigan, and joining the Sigma Chi fraternity seemed like a great way to dive into college life. The fraternity house, an old Victorian mansion near campus, was buzzing with energy for the welcome party. It was a typical college event: beer pong tables, loud music, and a mix of excitement and nervousness in the air. My new brothers seemed friendly, and the house itself, though slightly worn around the edges, had a charm that felt inviting. As the night wore on, though, I started noticing odd things: unfamiliar faces hanging around, whispers I couldn't quite catch, and a sense of unease that seemed to grow with each passing hour. By the second week, the house's initial charm started to wear off. I noticed things like the lights flickering at odd times and strange noises coming from the basement. The brothers brushed it off as typical old house quirks, but the unease grew. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I'd catch glimpses of movement out of the corner of my eye, and there were reports of odd occurrences, like a phone going missing only to be found in an unusual place, or doors creaking open on their own. It was unsettling but easy to ignore, until the night of the big football game. The game had been exhilarating, and we all celebrated back at the house with even more intensity. After everyone else went to bed, I stayed up, still buzzing with energy. I went downstairs to grab a snack and heard voices coming from the basement, low and murmured, as if a conversation was happening just out of reach. I tried to convince myself it was just the house settling or some distant party noise, but the whispers persisted, growing louder and more distinct. They were not words I could understand, but rather a series of unsettling, disjointed phrases that made my skin crawl. The next day I realized my wallet had gone missing. I was sure I'd left it on the kitchen counter, but it was nowhere to be found. I wasn't the only one. Other members of the fraternity had reported missing items as well. Tensions rose as we all started to suspect that someone might be stealing from us. Conversations around the house turned from light-hearted to suspicious, and the once tight-knit group began to fracture. The atmosphere became increasingly hostile, and rumors about who could be behind the thefts circulated, some even suggesting that it was someone from outside the house. One evening, as I was going through my belongings looking for my wallet, I found a small, hidden camera in my room, concealed behind a loose panel in the wall. My heart raced as I realized that someone had been watching me, watching all of us. The discovery shook me deeply. I immediately brought it to the attention of the fraternity president, but he dismissed it as a prank. The more I tried to investigate, the more I was met with indifference or irritation. It felt like no one else took it seriously, but I couldn't shake the paranoia that had set in. That night, after discovering the camera, I received a cryptic message on my phone. It read, "You're not alone. Watch your back." The message was chilling and seemed to confirm my worst fears. I decided to investigate further, looking into the basement where the whispers had come from. My curiosity and anxiety led me to the dark corners of the house, where I found a series of strange symbols scratched into the walls. They looked almost like a code or a ritualistic marking, which only heightened my sense of dread. I confided in a few close friends, and we started piecing together what we had experienced. We realized that several members of the fraternity had been acting strangely, avoiding direct eye contact or disappearing for long stretches. One of my friends discovered that some of these members had access to secret rooms in the house. We decided to confront them, hoping to get answers, but our confrontation was met with evasive answers and nervous laughter. It became clear that there were deeper, more sinister aspects to the fraternity than we had been led to believe. The following night, tensions reached a boiling point. A group of us confronted the suspicious members in the basement, where we had previously heard the whispers. As we demanded answers, a scuffle broke out. In the chaos, one of the older members revealed himself as the orchestrator of the unsettling events. He confessed that the thefts and surveillance were part of a twisted initiation rite designed to test our loyalty and resilience. The realization was shocking and horrifying. The fraternity's traditions were far more disturbing than we had imagined. Unable to tolerate the betrayal and fear, we decided to leave the house immediately. As we tried to escape, we discovered that someone had locked the doors, trapping us inside. Panic set in as we searched for a way out, encountering disturbing symbols and eerie messages scrawled on the walls. The sense of being hunted intensified as we heard footsteps and whispers echoing through the house. It was a nightmare scenario, and the fear of being unable to escape became overwhelming. Just as we were about to break a window to get out, the lights went out, plunging us into darkness. The sounds of footsteps grew louder, but we couldn't see anyone. It felt like we were being watched and herded through the house. We stumbled around, trying to find an exit while the oppressive atmosphere and sense of dread reached its peak. Every creak and whisper heightened our fear, making it clear that we were not alone in the house. In a desperate bid for freedom, we finally managed to force open a back door and escape into the night. We ran from the house, not stopping until we were far away. The ordeal left us shaken, and we immediately contacted the authorities. The investigation revealed that the fraternity had been involved in illegal activities, and several members were arrested. The house was condemned, but the psychological scars remained, and the experience left us with a deep distrust of seemingly friendly environments. Even after the house was shut down and the fraternity disbanded, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The strange symbols and messages haunted my dreams, and I often wondered if there were others who knew what had happened. The experience left me with a deep-seated paranoia about hidden dangers and the facade of normalcy. The house was eventually torn down, but the memories and the sense of being manipulated by a sinister force lingered, serving as a constant reminder of how terrifying the familiar can become when masked by darkness.